You're watching News at Prime. Let's get into another important discussion. Public Service and Administration Minister Inkosi Mzamo Buthelezi says a lack of ethical leadership is to blame for corruption. He delivered the opening address at the three-day inaugural G20 Anti-Corruption Working Group meeting, which took place in Cape Town on Monday. Buthelezi joining us now for more on this. Minister, good evening to you and thank you very much for your time. Let's start with the G20 Anti-Corruption Working Group. What is it and what is it meant to signify?
Thank you very much, Koli, and your viewers for the opportunity. The G20 Anti-Corruption Working Group's primary objective is to strengthen the public sector by promoting transparency, accountability, and also ethical leadership. That is what is the primary objective that it seeks to achieve. And as the presidency this year, we have 4 priorities that we wanted to put forth as things that needs to attract our attention as the G20 countries. Yeah.
In your speech, you mention an active citizenry and you saying that they should not merely be a passive recipients of governance. What did you mean by that?
That I meant to say, if you look at our priorities, the third one is fostering inclusive participation in our endeavor to deal with corruption, because we all understand that it can't be government alone that should be dealing with corruption, but it's an approach that should be all-inclusive, which therefore means that the civil society should be part, academia, private and public sector. So by that, I meant to say our citizens are not just passive recipients of governance, not at all. But in all honesty, they are, when they are more informed, when they are collaborated in our approach in terms of dealing with corruption, they are the ones that can drive accountability, because we will understand that in most cases, even when it comes to our 4th priority, which is whistleblowing, is the same community, the same civil society, the same public that normally blows the whistle in terms of any wrongdoing within government. So I was saying, therefore, that they form the central part of our endeavor in as far as dealing with corruption is concerned. We cannot sideline them in hope to win this fight against corruption.
Minister, I'm glad you expatiating on that point, because I want to use today's events. You may not have seen this, but you probably will see it later on today when you watch the news. In the Northwest, the residents of Zeerust, completely at their wits' end, basically frustrated by the lack of water and service delivery in their area, they decided to block the N4 highway. And to cut the long story short, police came dispersing them with rubber bullets. And I can't describe to you what that scene looked like, because police come with force. And I'm going to basically revert to isiZulu to describe this to you. Ukubona umuntu omdala egaqa ngamadolo crossing the road because of the fear that has been struck in them, all because they wanted to assert their rights. Is that the best way of responding to citizens when they are intending to assert the very rights you're talking about?
It's not the way, because it's common sense that when citizens are expressing their frustration, as government, we must adopt a particular approach in as far as how do we respond to that. But that frustration, if you just go deeper in relation to what exactly we're talking about here, the issue of corruption and everything, when we are saying, we as what we call the working group, the anti-corruption working group, there is a number of issues that we are looking at. Hence, my first response was very particular to say the lack of unethical leadership, the absence of that, the absence of financial controls, which are weak in sometimes, and where accountability is lacking, you will see such things. Because in the main, all these services, because corruption is not only undermining our democracies, but also it is doing so much more than that. Corruption also steals from the poor. Corruption undermines development, it undermines economic stability and growth, and deprive millions of citizens of essential services like the ones we are talking about here. So our belief is that when people are showing their frustration, government should respond in a very polite way and make sure that we don't retaliate in a manner that is as you have just described. But nonetheless, therefore, what we also encourage on the side of our citizens is that whenever they are having frustrations, they can demonstrate freely without demoralizing the services and the infrastructure that is there, of which I'm not suggesting that that has been the case there. But all we're trying to say is that we as government should play our fair share, and also our citizens, if we can all collectively try and deal with this cancer, which is corruption. We can see now more of our economy growing, we can see more of services being rendered to our people, and the trust will be actually restored, because corruption also is not about only stealing, it also erodes public trust. Hence, we are putting more emphasis now to say even institutions of government should be symbols of excellency, and they should only attract individuals who have strong ethical values, individuals who are excelling, and individuals who are competent,
Yeah.
so that the little resources we have are able to be serving to our people.
In short, therefore, Minister, what is being done by your department to root out corruption in the public service?
Our department is doing a lot, and not in isolation. We are doing this together with other departments and particularly specific law enforcement agencies. One of the things that we have done as a department, we have actually tried to enforce the issue of declaration of interest, where public servants must declare their interest, and we have also ensured that lifestyle audit is done to all managers, so that we can actually see whether the wealth that they have is equals to the amount of money that they are receiving. And also we have tried to have a register which is centralized, controlled by the department, where every public servant who have been fired as a result of corruption or has said to resign pending any investigation, the name of that particular employee will be registered in that department, so that in case he applies elsewhere, before he gets even to be interviewed, the department in question that is actually advertising the position should first check from that register to see if the name of that individual appears. If that is the case, that person should be excluded. And not only that, that person must be sent back to where he or she is allegedly committed those allegations, and then be dealt with accordingly, meaning that the issue of accountability is being strengthened. No one will actually just run away hoping to get an employment elsewhere, leaving matters and allegations against him or her. So there is a number of things, and there are success stories where the SIU has recovered some money and assets which are worth to billions of rands, because of this all-inclusive approach from different government entities trying to play together to ensure that we deal decisively with this cancer.
Yeah. Minister, as a final question, the public servants, workers in the public service, the understanding is that they are due an increase. The Minister of Finance has had to be sent back to rework his budget. Are you confident that this money, they are going to get it, given the country's financial position? And if so, how much longer can you sustain a public service that becomes more and more bloated as the years go by?
I will be very narrow in my response. I won't speak much in relation to the budget speech that's going to come. But what I want to highlight to you is that there is already an agreement that the employees will get their increase that we have all agreed on. So in the baseline, that is covered. The second part is that we should actually control our narrative to say that which is correct, not what we want to say. The public wage bill is not bloated per se. because you have about over 60 million people in South Africa, and the public servants only accounts for 1.2 million. And you know that many schools are lacking, they are without teachers. The police does not have enough workforce everywhere, even in our clinics and hospitals. There are no doctors, there are no nurses. So the notion that the public wage is actually exorbitant. It's not true. What is actually true in this whole case is that our economy is not growing enough to be able to sustain all our needs as a country. That is what we are saying here. Not to say the public wage bill is high. Definitely, it's going to look like that if the economy is not growing because we are not collecting as much as we need in order to finance all our competing needs. That is what is happening out there. The fact that the public wage bill itself is exorbitant is not true.
How big is that amount, Minister? Is 53 billion the correct amount?
What's that?
53 billion as the public wage bill. Is that the amount that I have read about that costs the taxpayer?
Say that amount is too much, that is costing the taxpayer. Is that what you're trying to drive the narrative to? Because if that is the case, I wouldn't say that, because you yourself know how much teachers are earning, how much our nurses are earning, which is not enough. So, but with the little that we have, we are trying. All that we do as government is to cut the size of our quota according to the cloth we have. Hence, I'm saying if our economy was growing as much as we want, because even this amount of money or the percentage that we agreed to increase with was not what the workers were actually demanding.
Yeah.
They were demanding far more than that, but we're able to meet halfway, understanding that as a country, at the moment where we are under circumstance, we can only afford so much. But that does not mean that what they have wanted initially is too much of a percentage that they wanted, but it's because our economy is not actually growing. Hence, as the South Africans now collectively, if we deal with all these challenges that we have, and we are able to all contribute meaningfully into our economy, and government does his fair share, and private sector also, including us as ordinary public servants, that can take us somewhere, because the issue of growing our economy should not be squarely be left with government, but every individual. Because if us as the ordinary citizens are part of all these corrupt activities and we're not doing that which is expected of us, say for example, if I am a citizen, I'm having a house and I leave the tap open, and I let water to just run like that, I'm not playing my fair share in terms of saving water and making sure that there is no wastage. So what I'm trying to say here is that our challenges as a country, enormous as they are, but when we come together and take a resolve and be so much patriotic in our approach, we can be able to get somewhere where all of us collectively, we can say our government is doing this much and we are satisfied. Although we cannot get to a point where we say all is well and all is good, there is always a room for improvement, but there must be a point where we say at least we have come to a point now where we are starting from a clean slate, where every person is involved and is responsible. That is where we should be taking the discussion to, and that is how we should be looking at all our challenges.
Inkosi Mzamo Buthelezi, thank you very much for your time.